Well, you are here on a pretty amazing Sunday in the history of Cedarbrook. We are super excited to kick off this series, but more than that, I am excited to welcome to the Cedarbrook family our brand new teaching pastor. If you've been with us as a part of the Cedarbrook family for the last few months, you've navigated this transition with us, and you know that last summer, our leadership team elected a group of 7 church members and board members to be our search committee. They scoured the world to find the very best communicator we could. I kid you not. We really wanted to find the very best person to fit our family. And so then early in the fall, we began conversations. And just a couple of weeks ago, our search team, our lead team, all had an opportunity to meet with this person and his family, getting an opportunity to meet them and interview them. And our elected leaders and our search team all voted unanimously to bring Pastor Michael Boehm and his wife Amanda and their 2 boys into the Cedarbrook family. So Cedarbrook, would you put your hands together and welcome Pastor Michael?
Hi. Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's been an exciting road to get here, and I'm excited to be here. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to share what I'm experiencing, learning from the Bible with other people. It's just a fun, exciting thing for me, and I look forward to getting to meet and get to know each and every one of you, and I mean that. I want to meet each and every person because I love people. I do. I love getting to know you. I love finding out what we have in common, and I love discovering how we are different. It just fascinates me. I love that. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also just want you to know how amazing that your leadership is here. We know we got the talent right on the stage and behind the stage. We know that, but that leadership and the way in which they were just grueling. I mean, I was like, every step of the way, I'm like, I'm blowing this thing. No, they're great. They're really wonderful and come right alongside myself and my family. I just want to introduce my family just a little bit. If you haven't seen the picture or anything, this is my family. This is one of the more recent ones. My wife, Amanda, and I, we're married 20 years. Now, next month, 21 years. So, long time for us. You know what I say about people that have been married 20 years or 21 years? That's a good start. It's a good start, right? And then our boys, 11 and 9. Levi is 11, and he loves all things music and, in particular, drums. He's been really excited to want to play these drums back here. So drummers, Jackson, all that, just beware. He'll be here in force asking about that. And then our 9-year-old, Matthias, he loves all kinds of puzzles. Like regular puzzles, which make no sense to me, like you have a nice picture, and then you cut it up, and you took it apart just to put it back together again. I don't know why you do that. But he loves doing puzzles, but he also loves like Rubik's Cubes, which just like looking at them just makes my brain hurt. And I'll try to work on him, like, I can't figure this out, and he'll just be like, oh, it's just like this. There you go, Dad. Like, well, I'm an idiot. So anyway, this is really hard for me, but he loves those types of things. And that's just a little bit of our family, and we love to get to know you and you to get to know us, which is really the tie-in with this whole I Am message series. This whole I Am message series is all about these phrases that Jesus uses so that we can know him. He wants to be known, right? He's trying to share with us how we should see him, how we should understand him. And he says some really kind of, when you think about goofy things, right? I am the bread of life. What? I am the resurrection, right? I am the gate. I don't know what those mean. And so we get to explore not only what Jesus means, but what they mean for us right here today. And that's exciting for me. And so I thought as we were looking at this message series, the best way to go about setting up the I Am series is get right to the source. Where did the I Am statements come from? Yeah? right where we first find in the Bible where someone is mentioning I am, and specifically how Jesus is going to use that and describe who he is. And it comes from a story in the second book of the Bible called Exodus. And it's named Exodus just because God is going to take these people and he's going to help them to exit out of this land called Egypt. It's actually the land of slavery. And so just a little recap so we can get on the same page before we jump into where this statement comes from. So God has made some promises to this group of people called the Israelites, and things start off really good, but then they slide into this uncertainty of where their life is going to be as a group of people. They're in Egypt, but now they're in slavery in Egypt. And where's this God that made these promises to us and bring us into our own land? Well, we learn right away that God does hear their cry for help. As they're crying out to him, he hears them, and then he chooses to partner with another human being, this guy named Moses, to help deliver these people. And this Moses guy, he kind of puts himself in this little exile from Egypt, and as he's been living for 40 years in another place, he sees a bush that is on fire but is not being consumed up on top of this mountain. He's like, I gotta go check that out. I go see what's going on with this. So he climbs up this mountain, he goes there, and he has an encounter with God, face to face, talking with God. And God starts telling him, I hear my people crying, and I'm going to deliver them from their slavery, and you're going to be a part of that. And Moses is like, I think you got the wrong guy. Right? He starts protesting that he's the guy to come alongside with God to be a part of this. He's uncertain about his own ability to be that guy. And yet God is going to reassure him. So we're going to pick up the story in Exodus chapter 3, starting in verse 11. So if you have a Bible, I'm borrowing this one because Mitch is awesome and I'm lame and left mine at home. Welcome to your teaching pastor, by the way. Yeah. I sure fooled them. Exodus chapter 3, verse 11, we start seeing how God's interacting with Moses and trying to reassure him, and Moses is just protesting I'm not the right guy. Chapter 3, verse 11. But Moses protested. If I go to the people of Israel, I'm sorry, I need to back up. Verse 11. There we go. Moses protested, who am I to appear before Pharaoh? Who am I to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt? And God answered, I will be with you. And this is your sign that I am the one who has sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship me, God, at this very mountain, the very mountain where Moses is seeing this burning bush and is talking with God. The way that Moses is going to know that God is actually sending him is only after he returns and God actually accomplishes everything he says he's going to. Talk about a time of uncertainty. Every step of the way you'd be like, I'm pretty sure God's with me. I'm pretty sure God has sent me, but I'm not really going to get that confirmation until I'm actually all the way back here worshiping with these people, right? But did you pick up on what God said in response to Moses' protest? Right? Who am I? I'm nothing. I don't have the ability to do this. And what did God say? I am with you. I'm with you, right? I'm with you. And I feel like I just need a pause here because this feels like our life. At least it feels like my life. In our uncertainty of our own ability to provide for ourselves, in our uncertainty of what the outcome of maybe a cancer treatment or rehab treatment might be like for us, in the uncertainty of wondering if God even hears us or if God even cares. We start doubting. We start questioning. And that's very true for me. This is kind of a connecting piece with me in this story. Because for some people, just knowing that God hears you and God is with you is enough. But in my life, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to know that God was just with me. I needed something more. My parents got divorced when I was about 6. And until I was 10, we would see my dad every other weekend, my younger sister and I. And when I was 10, my mom and my younger sister and I, we moved from Blaine, Minnesota to Flint, Michigan, uprooting everything, being in a completely different place, no longer being able to see my dad every other weekend. My brother, who is 12 years older than I am, he was down in Missouri, right? So there's no connection there. And I remember in 7th grade now, a few years have passed, and I'm in 7th grade, and I was feeling really alone, really cut off. And we've done the church thing and everything like that. And I remember sitting on my bed in my bedroom and just going, God, I'm completely alone. If you're real, then I want you to show up and sit right next to me. I want you to be here present. Because just knowing that God hears me and that God is with me just wasn't enough. I needed that personal connection. Now, I'd love to say, like, God just showed up there, but it didn't work out that way. But it's not just true for me, but I think it's true for some other people, right? You need something more than just hearing that God is with you and that God hears you. You need something more than that. And that's not only true for us that are like that, it's true for Moses. That's the story. He continues to protest this thing. God reassures him, I'm going to be with you, but Moses is going to protest again. And now we're going to hear where that first I am statement comes into play. We're going to be looking at where I should have been before in verse 13. Moses protested, if I go to the people of Israel and tell them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they will ask me, well, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Can we just be honest for a second here? All right? That has got to be the most ridiculous response to somebody asking you, what's your name? Who are you? Like, listen, you're not going to let me get away with that, right? If I come and we meet you and we're talking and we're going like this and you say, hey, tell me about yourself. And I'm just like, well, I am who I am. Right? What are you going to be like? That didn't help, right? Yeah, exactly. Who are you? Who are you, right? I mean, what's your family? They are who they are? I mean, this is not helpful information, right? But that's the question. Well, then who are you? And for me, I had to dig a little deeper with this because I'm like, I don't get this. Why would God respond in this way? And it helped me to know that this I am who I am actually equals I will be who I will be. Which you might think on the surface like it's not just redundant, but it begs the question, what kind of God is this God going to be, right? A God that hears the cries of his people, the God that is with you, or something more? And that's exactly what the people are going to experience. They're going to experience this great God that's going to work in great, powerful, mighty ways to not just rescue his people, but to show everybody he's the only God. He is the great I am. That's exactly what happens, right? If you read the story, which I encourage you to do, by the way, continue reading this story, you're going to see how God starts acting on their behalf. There's a bunch of plagues that come into play, which is all about battling the gods of Egypt and undoing and showing that they're not as powerful as he is. He's greater than they are. He's greater than their king, this Pharaoh guy, right? He's greater than that guy. And he's going to bring them out. And not just bring them out of Egypt. He's so great that the Egyptians are celebrating that they're leaving by giving them gifts of gold and silver and everything, and they go on their way. And you'd think, man, that's amazing for these people. But it leads them to a place of uncertainty as they travel out from Egypt and they camp next to this very nice sea, this big sea. And they've got to find a way around this because now they start seeing that these Egyptians don't like that they just took off on them. The Pharaoh sends out his army, an army of chariots and horses and trained men, trained in the art of warfare, to go and take out a bunch of slaves that have no training whatsoever. What kind of God is this God going to be? He brought us out of Egypt to the shores of this sea, and all I see is this impending doom. This is death coming to us. Is this God going to just cause us to die out here? And if you know the story, God sends this rush of wind, and it separates the waters, and it dries out the ground, and the people walk through the waters on dry ground. And this is so intimately connected with how Jesus uses the I am statement. One of his first times, it's connected with all of that imagery that we just went through, right? Do you want to see what this looks like? This is so cool. I love Jesus because of the way he ties things together and who he is, okay? All right, so there's a story in John chapter 6 we're going to get to. And Jesus has come on the scene. The people have been waiting for a prophet like Moses to come. Is Jesus this one? They're waiting for a king that's not going to be, a chump like they've experienced in the past, like a real king. And they're waiting for him, and Jesus is doing all of this teaching. He's doing miracles and healing people, and now he's got a group of people that he's been teaching, and there's like 5,000 plus of them. I mean, there's just everywhere. And it's getting late, and they're hungry. And the disciples that are following Jesus are like, we got to send these guys away. There's no food out here. And Jesus is like, no, you feed them. We'll just do this. Has them sit down. He feeds 5,000 plus people with just a little sack lunch, right? He does all that, and they're amazed by that. And that's where we pick up the story. John chapter 6. John chapter 6. Starting in verse 14. When the people saw Jesus do this miraculous thing, they exclaimed, surely he is the prophet we have been expecting. When Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away into the hills by himself. Now, just let's put some imagery together here. This is really important, okay? They've had other kings. They've got an idea what that king is supposed to do. Maybe this is the prophet like Moses that we've been waiting for. Let's force him to be the king. And Jesus leaves because he's like, no, I'm not going to be the king you want me to be. I will define the kind of king that I am. He's going to do that here in a second. And he goes up a mountain, right, by himself to pray. Moses, anyone going up by himself on this mountain to talk with God, right? But he's greater than Moses. But what's going to happen next? He's got the disciples there. They're waiting for Jesus. He hasn't come down yet, and so they don't know what to do. They're just going to get in a boat and go. Here, verse 16. That evening, Jesus' disciples went down to the shore to wait for him, down to a shore. We're at water, right? Were the Israelites at water before? Do you see what I'm saying? Imagery, super important. Verse 17, but as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back, they got into the boat and headed across the lake toward Capernaum. They're going across this lake. Now just stop and think here for a second of what's happening, right? Verse 18, soon a gale swept down upon them and the sea grew very rough, chaotic waters, right? They're in this chaotic waters. There's uncertainty that they're floating in this boat. What is going to happen to them? Some of them are seasoned fishermen. They maybe can handle this, but maybe not. And some of them aren't at all. The winds are coming at them. The water and the waves are coming up over the boat. Is it going to sink them? Are they going to be cast out of it? They're going to drown? What's going to happen? Where's Jesus? All of this stuff. This uncertainty of life that they're sitting in. And here's how Jesus takes the story of the Exodus and connects it right there with them in their midst. Verse 19 and following. They had rowed 3 or 4 miles when suddenly they saw Jesus walking on the water toward the boat. They were terrified, but he called out to them, "Don't be afraid. I am here." Do you see what Jesus did with this? The great I am of Exodus not only hears you, not only is with you, but now is physically present right here with you in the midst of your uncertainty and the chaos of your life. That's an amazing thing that Jesus does here about who he is. I am here means the great I am is right here with you. This is where I feel like I really connect with this story. Remember when I was sitting on my bed in 7th grade? I mean, I know you weren't there, but yeah, I remember the story, right? I was sitting there, I wanted God to be right there with me. He wasn't. It wasn't until I was in high school. And I met a friend, she was just a great friend, and she would talk about her youth group all the time, which sounded really fun. But she never invited me to her youth group. I don't know why. And it never entered my mind to be like, hey, I should go check it out. But you know what entered in my mind? I should go buy a Bible and read it. Okay, that's weird, right? So I did. In high school, I started reading the Bible, so I bought one, and I just started from the beginning, because that's what you do with the book. And I just started reading. I read all through this whole thing. And each night, after I get my homework done, after football practice, stuff like that, I would sit and before I go to bed, and I would read some of it. Some of it was hard to get through. Some of it was cool stories, like the Exodus story. But by the time I got to the first story about Jesus in the Bible, the first book of the Bible about Jesus, Matthew, I'm reading through it, and I remember reading the section where Jesus is like preaching about things, and I don't remember exactly where it was that he was talking about, but I remember reading it, laying on my bed, another bed, laying on my bed, reading it, going, Jesus, this is all true. I want to be a part of it. It was like these words that Jesus had spoken, and someone had the thought to write it down and put it here. It's like the great I am was right there present with me. Completely changed everything, the whole course of my life. From that moment on, I was like asking my friends to go study the Bible together. Let's read this thing, right? Changed everything. It was the great I am is here with me on my bed. Right? Isn't that amazing? I think that's really fun, a part of my story. And that's the thing that we get to experience. We get to experience this great I am that wants to be known and wants you to know the great I am in all these different ways that Jesus is going to talk about with the bread of life. What does that mean? I don't know. I'll figure it out March 5th. I think that's when I preach on that one. I am the resurrection. I am the true vine. I am. He's trying to get us to be known. He's trying to draw you near to him. And that's the invitation. This whole message series is about learning what these I am sayings mean, and more importantly, what they mean to you today, the great I am that's here with you. So I invite you to come back each week as we unpack these about the great I am. We can learn what they mean and what they mean for you. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this amazing group of people in every area of their life that they are at with you. Some of them struggling in uncertainty. Some of them in chaotic waters. Some of them have been lifelong followers that can grow deeper in knowing you more, Jesus. We ask that you would continue to reveal who you are as we draw near to you. We want to be where you are, Jesus. God, we ask that your Spirit would move in and through us as you are the great I am that is here. Amen.